tonight, once again, we bring you the loudest show on television with the loudest host on television, Bruce Snow Ghost Russell.
Thank you.
How's it going, Bruce?
Pretty good. How's it going, Mike?
It's pretty good. I'm very excited about today's guest.
Yeah, me too. Before we start this question, before we start the show, I got one question for you.
What's that?
How the apparition are you?
How the apparition am I? I'm okay. How the apparition are you?
Inapparable.
Well, there you go. Our guest today is Sam Gaskin, who's probably, are you trying to set a sound point there?
Yeah.
So this entire show is going to be synced up on that moment.
I was just excited about it.
Sam is pumped.
Yeah.
Sam is probably best known to Snow Ghost fans as the creator of the opening animation of the Snow Ghost show, and maybe known to other people in central Massachusetts for sketch work, comics, and things like that. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Now you're from Holden.
Yeah.
And then you came to Worcester.
Sort of. I come to Worcester.
You come to Worcester.
I still do not live in Worcester.
Well, I understand that there's been a big exodus of young artistic people from Holden to Worcester in the last few years. This is what Jacob Brenda has told me.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say artistic all the time, but there was a large exodus of people from Worcester County into Worcester.
Why do you think that is?
It was more of a thing that there's no parents around. We can drink whenever we want. Watch movies. No parents. Stay up all night.
It's like the equivalent of going to college without having to pay tuition.
Yeah, no one went to college. They just moved to Worcester.
There you go.
Yeah, if you gotta go, I have one thing to say.
What's
if
that?
If you're gonna go to college without paying the dues, why are you gonna call it other than college?
I don't know. What are you going to call it?
College.
College. There you go. And so you told me that for a while you had a bunch of you guys were living in a house in Worcester?
There was a big house that a large portion of moved into on Wall Street.
Okay.
I did not live there. I was a regular, but not.
And one of these houses was the house that caught on fire?
That was the house that caught on fire.
This is the famous house that caught on fire, and nobody woke up, and like some point in the early morning, suddenly somebody was like, "Oh, I think there's been like a lamp fire."
There was a lamp fire.
When was the fire?
When?
Yeah.
Maybe a month or two ago. A lamp in the basement on Wall Street. A lamp in the basement was knocked over, and there were no smoke alarms in this building.
Okay.
And it set a couch on fire, which started burning, and smoke would go up, and the heat actually melted whatever was soldering on the pipes, and the pipes burst and sprayed water and kept the fire down until someone could put it out in the morning. They woke up to a house full of smoke.
That's amazing. Were you there when that happened?
No.
I remember there were people from that incident who were at his record release party.
Yes.
Which was like the next day or something like that.
The fire department actually didn't show up?
They did show up eventually.
Did they?
Yeah.
It's just that nobody in the house actually like realized that there was a fire going on.
What was it? Just a light bulb? Or was it actually a kerosene lamp or something?
No, it was just a light bulb, just like leaning against a couch.
Oh, that's what caused it.
Super flammable couch.
That's what caused it to start fire, to ignite.
It's a cruddy old lamp and a skanky old couch, and bam.
Yeah.
There it happens. There it happens.
There goes the couch potato.
It's a baked potato.
Yeah, a baked couch potato.
All right, like a baked potato.
So
Show's over.
I want to trace how this movement, because it's kind of like the Oregon Trail of people coming from Holden to Worcester. How this worked for you? So you were at Fitchburg State for a while.
For a year.
And you told me that everybody has to pay their dues in Fitchburg.
Everyone does have to. I think everyone needs to spend a year doing something in Fitchburg, not necessarily living there, but.
You mean everybody who's a young person, or just anybody who's curious about the way that central Massachusetts works?
Probably anybody. Well, maybe it's a rites of passage into adult life in some way.
When you say that people have to pay the dues in Fitchburg, I mean people are supposed to make a nuisance of themselves, uphold the law, and all this other stuff.
Not even just being in Fitchburg. It doesn't even matter what you're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just being in Fitchburg.
So if he's getting
arrested,
arrested or something like that and causing a scene, that'd be like paying your dues in Fitchburg, basically.
Yeah.
I can do that here as well as
that would probably work
too. So
you get it done a lot faster.
All right.
I had to go to college there for a year. It would have been smarter for me to get arrested because then I'd already be done.
Well, if you went to the college in Fitchburg, did you do any panty raids there while you were there?
No, I didn't live on campus, so I didn't get to do that. Revenge of the Nerds style.
And I've heard from our director of our show today that you were in the history of television class when you were at Fitchburg State.
Yes.
What was that class like?
It was actually harder than you'd think. It wasn't just watching television. You had to actually write essays about television.
Was it about the economics, or was it about the technology, or?
Everything. It was more about the history of and like its impression on culture. Today's culture.
And then you went to, and I don't know if I'm getting the chronology correct, but I know that at some point you were at the comics.
Immediately after, yeah.
And
next year.
What was that? What's that called?
The Center for Cartoon Studies.
The Center for Cartoon
in White River Junction, Vermont.
And that to me seems like, I don't know, some people will say, oh, you took a class about the history of television, ha ha ha. But when you say, I went to college at the Center for Cartoon Studies.
Then that's even worse.
That's like, yeah, that's even.
Then people are saying, oh, clown college, huh?
What were you doing? What goes on there?
Everything surrounding comics. You learn how to draw, you learn the history of comics, you get other knowledge, like you learn anatomy, and it's basically art school without the math requirements and things. Although I've heard that they're actually starting to institute more stuff like that to make it more well-rounded. I actually did not get an official degree. I got
you went there, you
certificate
learned.
of completion.
That reminds me. I was trying to use an apple for anatomy, and I failed them both completely.
Did you use your Adam's apple?
Oh yeah! Every time I squeeze my apple, I taste apple cider.
This is like the most pumped you've been of any show ever. How much coffee did you have this afternoon?
Not enough yet.
It was a good show. It's only like, what is it, 1:15 in the afternoon?
And you're already just flying.
Keep it going.
Well, you know, Daniel Close, the famous, that's how you say it? Daniel Close. Dan Klaus.
Klaus, I guess, yeah.
Klaus.
Klaus.
Daniel Klaus, the famous comics.
He's real
He's a movie maker now, so you can say Klaus.
He's a real Klaus. I know, so I don't feel allowed to shoot.
Well,
is that allowed?
I'm sorry, you're asking a question.
So this guy, he's like a famous comics guy. People would know him from, he did the comic did Ghost World, came out of the movie Art School Confidential.
Which was actually based off of like a 4-page story.
Which was like, but he wrote the screenplay or something for that.
Yeah, he co-wrote the screenplay with Terry Zwoigoff.
There you go. And I think that I remember hearing an interview with him where he was talking about that the value of art school was not that anybody was going to teach you anything in art school formally. It was that it's really, really great to be in an environment with a bunch of young people who are totally about art and spending all their time doing art. I'm wondering to what extent you found that to be true with the...
I totally agree with that. I mean, it's good inspiration and it keeps you moving, but I mean, if you just know art, then you don't know anything else, especially when it comes to comics and you want to be able to tell stories. You need to know other things and you need to experience other things. Otherwise, you're just going to tell stories about comics.
You think actually you learn how to draw comics?
Yeah.
I suppose as drawing is probably a lot harder. It's a lot more time consuming.
No, I think you could draw at any skill level, and as long as you have an interesting story, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it's comic or whatever?
No. Well, I mean, it depends.
What if you're drawing a comic book and it's something really comical?
The only comics I've seen of yours that I remember that seemed to be directly inspired by your experiences was a series you did about famous cartoonists buying you drinks when you were underage.
Yeah.
I think that was really incredible.
I'm not reprinting that because I can get in trouble.
It was pretty great though. It was like a step beyond name dropping though. It wasn't like, oh, I met this really famous cartoonist. It was like, I met this really famous cartoonist and I saw him commit a crime on my behalf.
Basically, yeah.
It's kind of biting the hand that feeds you or something along those lines.
And that's why I'm not reprinting it.
So what are you up to these days then?
Well, I do have a book coming out supposedly in spring, sometime between April and June. Undecided yet. And that's collecting a lot of short stories and jokes and goofy little comic things together.
Okay.
And right now I'm working on issue 2 of Pizza Wizard.
Okay, and issue 1 of Pizza Wizard came out around the time of this house fire, right?
Yeah,
And
shortly thereafter.
And that was like a book
destroyed?
length. Well, that was like a book length story.
It's going to be a book length.
Well, it was like a thin book. It was like a thin book length story in issue 1.
Booklet.
It was a book. No, I paid like $5 for that. More?
It was like 3.
3? I don't thought I paid.
I was told to put that price on it.
Say no more. Say
And
no
your stuff
more.
destroyed up in a fire, though?
My stuff?
Yeah.
No, my friend's stuff did.
Oh, was Jake up
That's
there at
too
the
bad.
time, or?
No, he doesn't hang out there.
Oh, he doesn't?
No.
Where's the house now? All boarded up now, or?
I don't know. A lot of people moved out.
Oh, really?
It's like that first house that everyone gets when they all move out of their parents' house and they just destroy it.
Was this like a punk house?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the
scorched
house
earth
like
policy.
It's kind of like the house like the Galgala is.
Sure.
That's a nice house though.
All right.
That's not like, maybe it's like a punk house, but it's like a really nice punk house.
A real metal house.
A real metal.
Metal.
You should have a metal house.
All right.
You should get together with a bunch of headbangers and just make it happen.
All
Have
right.
metal
Would
shows.
be made out of metal.
That's right.
You wouldn't have to worry about fire.
What's that?
The only fire you'd have to worry about would be the fires of hell.
The hell with that?
And
it used to
so-
be black metal.
How much paint that would take.
So, we need to have more questions and less laughing in this episode. More
I want you
content.
to edit it down so it's just laughing.
We're doing no editing of this one.
Half hour. Oh man.
So people can find your stuff like at the HBML Junk Shop at 420 Pleasant Street,
What
which
about
is
jellies or anything like that?
Not jelly. That's entertainment,
Oh, really?
which is directly next door to Jellies.
and they have your.
So if you're willing to walk, that
do they have your stuff?
Yes.
And like, is there like a local comics section?
They actually put it into the regular comic section,
So people should go in there and say.
but it's not moving either way.
People should go in there and say, I'm looking for some of this Gaskin, Sam Gaskin's
Yeah.
stuff.
And I'm also I have a strip in their new anthology.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
I have been asking you this when you came on the show. I hope you're not here blow a gasket because we're responsible for this equipment.
I wanted to ask you actually about how you got into comics, which is seems like a weird question to ask somebody because it's kind of like saying, how did you get into candy? It's like
When you
it's
started
just
drawing.
yeah. It seems like it's something that everybody is interested in, or at least all guys are interested in at some point in their youth.
To an extent.
You weren't into comics so much when you were a
Well,
kid?
no, I mean when I was a kid, yeah. I mean me personally too, but not everyone is that into comics. I think it was sort of like the lesser of all evils. I knew that I wanted to do something in art in some way, and like I was even considering like going to film school or something. I didn't know what to do, but basically I knew that I wanted to make something, I wanted to tell stories, and the easiest way to do that is with comics, because if you're making a film, you need to get a crew and you need to get expensive equipment and everything. You just need pencil and paper and yourself and a lot of spare time.
What kind of stories were you telling
I
at
just
first?
grabbed an extra paring knife.
What kind of story? What kind of stories were you telling at the beginning?
Just goofy stuff.
The kind of stuff like I'm saying right now.
Close, yeah.
Well, you're still telling
Maybe not as witty, but
you're still telling goofy stories. Like I think
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll find this to be a good comment or a bad comment. One of the best comics I ever saw from you was your one about Saved by the Bell, because it's just like you stripped off any civility that was in Saved by the Bell, and like it was just like nothing but lust and murderous hatred.
But that's what I wanted to be. What high school was really like.
And the
It's
show
like Saved
was
by the Bell in
probably-
reality.
Well, I don't know. It was still goofy like Saved by the Bell, but I almost think watching Saved by the Bell, like like the fact that like Slater should be more homicidal. Actually,
Yeah.
I read a novelization of Saved by the Bell over the summer. This kid who was staying in the house I was staying in had like stolen this from the school library. I was bored one day, and it had like a lot more, I think, aggression from A.C. Slater than I remember seeing on the show in the book, and your comic was even like to a next level.
Yeah.
So it seems like
He's a big guy. He's scary. He wouldn't be hanging out with Screech.
Isn't he on like the Regis and Kathy Lee now, or the what do you call it, Regis and Kelly?
Screech?
No.
Wait,
Slater.
Slater?
The dude who
Oh,
played
I don't
Slater.
know. I'm not awake then.
I just saw. I was visiting my grandparents and watching TV over the holidays, and I just it's like what's his name, Mario Lopez?
Yeah, that's not
There
right.
he is.
Was this last year?
That's weird.
This is this year. This is why we shouldn't have a TV show, because we don't know anything about. They didn't see that would have been. This would have been after the class, the history
We
of
skipped
television.
that. I don't think we
Lopez studies.
We got to a certain point, and I think somewhere like maybe the beginning of the 80s, mid 80s, we stopped. So
Here's a good one. You remember that that party up from Lincoln Street there last year around this time, like October 30th? Off from Lincoln Street. You remember that, Mike, right?
Did you ever go to any of these Halloween parties at Downhill Mansion?
oh, Forbes Street?
Yeah.
No, I did not. Make
I went
it
there
last year.
I went there last year. Remember that, Mike?
It was pretty incredible because Bruce dressed sort of like a zombie. He sort of had white paint, and I don't know what you were wearing for a costume, just a shirt or something?
Yeah, and I had blood on my face. And
He had a little blood in it.
underneath my mouth and my nose.
The great thing about it was, like, anybody can sort of wear this, but as we're walking to the party, and we had to walk a couple miles to this party, there'll be little kids and whatever trick-or-treating with their parents, and they were all terrified. Like, it wasn't like they were going, ah, but it was like we would be walking along and the kids would sort of look at Bruce and look away, and then they would like look back at him in a worried way. Like,
That's when they crossed the street.
yeah, they were really freaked out. Like, even older sort of teenage kids were really freaked out. That was a great costume.
Oh, yeah. And you said that you should do something about that skin problem. And I got something to use. Now I got something to handle that skin problem. Use
What's that?
Proactive now.
It's worked wonders.
Do you ever read comic books?
Yeah.
What do you like?
I used to like, I like Sandman a lot. And, one started, Grenfield, or
I don't know.
starts with a G.
Must not like it that much.
You loaned me From Hell recently.
Yeah.
Did you ever read that one? Alan Moore's
No,
From
I haven't.
Hell.
It's not really a comic book, though. It's more like a novelty thing.
Well, it's a graphic novel. It's
Oh,
a
right.
big- yeah.
And I used to like Blood from the Vampire series of Anne Rice. I actually got an Anne Rice book, too.
A book or a comic book?
No, a book. They actually discontinued the comic forms of the graphic novelties of Anne Rice. They were like
Oh.
in paperback things like comic books are.
So let me ask you, what do you feel like there was these early influences in comics that you can point to? Like people who you read when you were young and you were
When I
like,
was really young.
you know, and you were like, these are the people who you seized upon to.
It was mostly when I was really young. I'd read a lot of comic strips, like Calvin Hobbes and Foxtrot, and even Garfield. And I mean, it's one of these things peter out when you get older. But
Yeah, Mike did one with me and one year when I always just say, well, what's the first thing you know? He did that with me with Ziggy. I said,
Oh no, Zippy the Pinhead.
Zippy the Pinhead.
We'll have to. We'll in post production. We'll put this over the top right now. Of Bruce, the Zippy the Pinhead. Grace Duffy, who's also been a past guest on this show, helped to draw Bruce. And the
Yeah.
Zippy stuff I did mostly by tracing. Anyhow.
anyway, but I think the most important thing, like for anybody, is Mad Magazine.
Well, imagination.
I mean, to read.
That's how I go out draw.
Pencils.
I erase it away.
Scratch them.
Is there anybody in particular in Mad who you look on as being like a?
I really liked Will Elder's stuff. He was there in the beginning, and he just like every panel is just filled with a million jokes. Like there would be the main joke between the two whatever characters that were communicating, and then there'd be like 30 other tiny jokes just hidden in the background.
I think Mad is really cool, especially when you're a kid, because it sort of teaches you the virtue of like close reading, or it repays additional attention. I feel like most of the stuff at least that was on TV when I was a kid, or even like Marvel comics and stuff, you know, you could read this issue of the X-Men 100 times, and you're not going to get anything out of it that you're not going to get out of the first time. But that beat up old copy of Mad that your friend's brother has loaned you. Like that has, you know, those little Sergio Aragonese does the little drawings in the margins of those, and
the pictures I got for my Christmas and my Vegas Day thing there. Those pictures I showed you. I got that from a friend of mine who used to own a comic book shop, and now he just does the comics subscription at his house now. And this is in Massachusetts, so it doesn't do you any trying to find it. But and I used to get a lot of that stuff from him when I could. But
now a lot of the stuff that I've seen from you has been in your self-published zine, and a lot of it is like comic strippy or short comic book kind of stuff. But now you're working on this long-form epic. Is the next issue of Pizza Wizard the last one, or is it just the second of
Second one. I think the third one will be the last one.
Okay. Do you feel like you're pushing yourself in a new direction by?
Sort of. I mean, I'm doing a few different projects. I have one that's sort of on the back burner that's like the complete opposite of it.
Okay.
It's like a coming-of-age story with like very, very little detail. But it's supposed to be a longer thing. I mean, I'm waiting until I get some other stuff done. I'm behind on everything as is anyways, but I'm trying to get as many different genres and things in me as possible. I mean, Jacob has the same thing that he's doing. He wants to do, in each comic that he does, he wants to be a different style of like classic ones. Like he's already done his horror comic, which is called White Vinegar. If people haven't picked it up, they should get it.
Okay.
He wants to do a Western, he wants to do a
Jacob
romance
Berendez
comic.
has
Yes.
this? Wow, I haven't seen this.
Yeah, it's really great. But yeah, and this is his plans to do one of like each of the classic genres. He wants to do a science fiction one.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I think one of my favorite directors still is Stanley Kubrick, and that's one of the things that I really admire about him is that, you know, he did these movies like Bam Bam Bam, so different from each other. You know, 2001, and then Clockwork Orange, and then Barry Lyndon. Just totally different directions, totally different places in time, almost totally different visual styles. I just love that idea.
It's a good way to keep yourself interested.
Yeah, yeah. To sort of say what style suits the story, if you can, and then try to pull that off rather than saying what's my style, and I'll impose that style on the story, which can be interesting. But I think it's a little more fun to say, wow, the same guy directed, you know, the same guy directed these. He also did Doctor Strangelove, like another totally different style, another totally different feel of a movie.
It's like maybe if George Lucas had done something else in the
so
90s.
I saw one time where on the Heat of the Night ones where this they actually used drawing once. His black kid was in his house and he saw his father get shot. There's some bank manager of this bank who supposedly like stole some money and stuck it into his locker, and so he watched his father get shot and killed, and so the Gillespie's lady Harriet Long got a hold of this kid and sat down writing all this stuff, and you really couldn't make heads or tails out of it. But the one that was Gillespie was looking at, it really actually showed to find that the man, the watch, stuff what he was wearing, and somehow he something sparked something at the end when he was walking through the park, and then he pulled out his watch, and there it was, because whatever was on that picture, it kind of like triggered him to find out who had killed his dad. So actually, art was actually used. So art's like can actually
solve crime.
Right. I mean, I solve crimes all day because I'm a snow ghost, and I snow a lot of.
A lot of people there, you know, there's a lot of people who don't. There's a lot of people who I think maybe are a little contemptuous of art qua art because they say, what is it? It's self-indulgent. It's personal expression. But who cares about personal expression?
Right.
Who cares what somebody else thinks? But they don't realize that it could solve crime.
All right.
How many crimes have you solved?
Too many.
How many crimes have you committed?
Probably.
You solved all your own crimes?
More or less. Would you say on balance you've committed or solved more crimes?
Probably about equal. I mean, I'm sure I probably did a lot of the caffeine addiction crimes, though.
It makes solving the crimes really easy.
Caffeine addiction is not a crime.
Oh, sure it is.
You should get one of those hats like skating is not a crime, caffeine is not a crime. What? Coffee is not a crime?
What if? Well, one time caffeine can be a crime unless you're drinking decaf.
That's a crime.
Now now you're affiliated with our sponsor, Happy Birthday, Mike Leslie Junk Shop, right? And that's really like you and Jacob are there. You're doing your comics. Bert Centeno, who hopefully we'll have on the show one of these weeks. We have to get a parental slip or something to remember to get him on.
Like 10 or 12.
He said he's going to come on as box boy. He's going to put on his box costume.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to do the whole interview dressed as a box.
He's been a few different characters.
But he's doing, I mean, he not only does his, his every once in a while on a Friday, he'll do his caricature business, but he drew, you've seen his great Wizard of Oz retelling, starring as one character, the Snow Ghost.
Yeah, right. I was actually wearing I think that's the one he drew me. I implored him up to the store there.
I think it's great that you guys have that community. It not only is it a store, but it's also a
hangout place.
Well, not only is it a hangout place, but it's also an art incubator.
All right.
It's a fertile ground.
Yeah.
It's a support. It's like a support
For
group.
kids who come
All right.
in.
For kids from
I think he's
Holden.
one of 2 kids who come in. The other one is this young kid named Dean who comes in with his grandmother very often. And every time he comes in, he asks, "Do you guys have any new Godzilla stuff? Did you get any new Godzilla stuff in? When are you guys getting more stuff? Is there any in the back?"
That sounds like a guy who's like, "Do you have any more skulls? Do you have any more like Michael Myers dolls?"
Have you ever any Snow Ghost dolls? Have you ever any more of those DVD movies? I actually found those at they got them at the outlet from West Boylston Street, and they also got them at the big.
You guys should sell public domain DVDs down there. I mean, I was just down at the library, and I'm like, how come I can't just go to the library and rather than them have to pay $4 to check me out and process a DVD, they could just burn me a public domain DVD if I'm looking for Night of the Living Dead or White Zombie or whatever.
Yeah, I just saw a new version of that too in 1998. There's a black and white version actually come out in '68. That's a real version.
I think we need to wrap up the show.
You think so?
Yeah. I think that normally we would give our guest a gift from our sponsor, but since
I've already got him.
you already are our sponsor, Bruce had a special gift to give you.
The official Snow Ghost pig.
Oh, wow.
This is one of my newest ones.
This is the new?
Yeah.
The older
version?
The other one said the old one said that Snow Ghost, so.
And this one just says Snow Ghost.
That's awesome.
So this is for when you have to rock, but there's no joking around. You can use this
All
pick.
right.
That happens.
That's right.
Rock happens.
All right.
Well, Sam, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for being on the show.
Do you have any final statements or messages?
Embrace the chaos.
How about you, Bruce?
Embrace the chaos by watching the Snow Ghost every week, every weekend.
First, there was a snow ghost on top of a silver mountain. Now that ghost is your community host. A snow ghost wants to get the most out of you. 'Cause a better world begins with you.